The handwriting, the CEO stared at it. He remembered it now, barely, but enough. Years ago, the janitor used to leave small, unobtrusive notes when he fixed things around the office. Little slips of paper, tucked neatly beside a newly replaced light bulb or a freshly cleaned spot on the carpet. Light replaced, carpet cleaned, spill taken care of, simple, factual statements of work completed. He always signed them with a tiny, almost shy signature. Halai, the CEO, back then just a junior executive climbing the corporate ladder, never replied. He'd see the notes, register the task was done, and toss them in the bin without a second thought. He never thanked him. Never even acknowledged his existence beyond the silent, efficient completion of his duties. Halai was just a part of the building's machinery, a ghost who kept the place running after everyone else went home. Now, years later, that same distinct, slightly slanted handwriting carried words that pierced him deeper than any hostile takeover or brutal board meeting ever could. For the first time in what felt like a lifetime, he whispered the janitor's name aloud, the sound foreign on his own tongue. Halai, it wasn't a note about a fixed light this time. It was a letter. A letter found on Hale's empty desk in the small, windowless custodial closet in the basement, a space the CEO had never once visited in his 20-year career at the company. Halai had retired a week ago, no party, no cake, no gold watch. He had simply stopped coming. The CEO only found out because the new cleaning service was leaving streaks on the glass walls of his corner office, and he'd barked at his assistant to get the old guy back. That's when he was told Halai was gone for good, and that he'd left something for him. The CEO unfolded the letter, his hands, usually so steady when signing million-dollar deals, trembling slightly. The paper was simple, inexpensive copy paper, but the words written on it held a weight that the finest stationery could never possess. It began, "Dear Mr. Thompson," using his last name, just as the CEO had always thought of him only as the janitor. The formality felt like a gentle rebuke. "I hope this letter finds you well. I'm writing this on my last day. 65 years old, you know. Time to hang up the mop. I wanted to thank you." The CEO paused, rereading that last line. Thank him? For what? For decades of utter indifference? He had never spoken a single word to the man beyond a grunt if they happened to pass in the hallway late at night. The letter continued. "Thank you for letting me be a small part of this company's journey. I started here when your father was in charge. I remember you when you were just a kid, coming into the office on Saturdays, full of big dreams. I watched you work your way up from that small cubicle on the 3rd floor to the corner office on the 40th. I saw the late nights you put in, the takeout containers piling up in your trash. I cleaned them up, of course. I remember when you got that big promotion, the one that made you vice president. You stayed so late that night you fell asleep at your desk? I turned off your lamp and made sure the door was locked when I left. You were so tired. I was proud of you, in my own way. Like watching a plant you've been watering finally bloom, a lump formed in the CEO's throat. He remembered that night. He had woken up confused, the sun streaming in, thinking he'd forgotten to turn off the lights. He never considered someone might have watched over him. He kept reading. I saw the pictures you put on your desk, your wife, then your kids. I watched them grow up through those little 4x6 frames. The crayon drawing of a superhero your daughter made for you? It fell behind your desk once. I found it while vacuuming and pinned it back on your board. I didn't want you to think it was lost. It seemed important. The CEO's eyes darted to his pinboard. The drawing was still there, faded and curling at the edges. His daughter was in college now. He hadn't thought about that drawing in years, but its presence was a constant, comforting part of his office landscape, an unnoticed gift from an unseen guardian. I know you were always busy, the letter went on, and there was no hint of accusation in the words, only a simple statement of fact. Big decisions, the weight of the company on your shoulders, I understood. My job was to make sure you had one less thing to worry about. A clean floor, a working light, a coffee spill that vanished before the morning meeting. I took pride in that, in being invisible but essential. In creating a space where you and everyone else could do your best work. The CEO leaned back in his leather chair, the luxurious comfort of it suddenly feeling obscene. He thought of all the times he'd walked through the gleaming lobby, the spotless hallways, the pristine boardroom, and taken it all for granted. It wasn't magic. It was Halle Halle with his cart and his broom and his quiet dedication. The final paragraph was short. I guess what I'm trying to say is it was an honor to work here, to watch it all unfold. I'm leaving a little something for you. It's not much. Just a little piece of my story. Thank you for the opportunity. Sincerely, Henry Halle. Henry, his name was Henry. For the first time, the janitor had a first name. He was a person. A person who had watched over him, who had felt pride in his success, who had carefully preserved his child's drawing. A person he had never seen. The CEO's gaze fell to a small, lumpy package wrapped in brown paper that had come with the letter. He tore it open. Inside was an old, worn-out photograph. It was a picture of a much younger Halle, standing proudly next to a much younger man, the CEO's own father, the company's founder. They were both smiling, arms slung around each other's shoulders. On the back, in his father's familiar, looping script, was a note. Henry, my friend, the first man I ever hired. The bedrock of this company. Thank you for everything. The CEO stared at the photograph, the two letters, one from the past, one from the present, blurring through the tears welling in his eyes. He had inherited his father's company, his father's office, his father's ambition. But somewhere along the way, he had forgotten his father's heart. He had forgotten that a company isn't just a balance sheet or a stock price, it's people. People like Henry Halle, the invisible but essential foundation upon which everything else is built. It was a thank you 20 years overdue, a conversation that should have happened 1,000 times in 1,000 quiet hallways,